garden, you know. Why do you want your veggies to be? I don't like that. I use sun, water, dirt. All right. But let's talk about this. These are the questions you supposedly are supposed to consider. If you look at 10 steps, this is the way it's organized. Doesn't it say that? Step 1, step 2, and so forth, right? To me, a bigger issue is what kind of garden do you want? What do I mean by that? Traditionally, there are 3 types. You can garden in the ground, where you dig. This is a community garden. You can garden in raised beds. This is kind of new, come into vogue in just the past couple of decades, I guess, so it's not that new. The idea here is you build up, or you can have gardens in pots, container gardening, right? What I want you to do right now is take your index card and just off the top of your head, pick which of those 3 feels most appealing to you. Don't think about it too much. Okay. Container, raised bed, or ground? Raised bed. Gotta just pick one. I won't say too much here. Okay, let's talk about the pros and cons of these. In ground bed, we take advantage of the natural soil minerals. Remember, plants need all those minerals once they're activated in the soil food web, because you put it in compost, right? You have a lot of minerals there naturally, right? Same thing, the native soil organisms. Somebody was asking about mycorrhizae. We'll talk in that detail about that in just a minute, okay? The cons, the pros and cons here, the ground here is hard. Right? A lot more physical labor. When I moved into my original house in the 80s, I broke my backyard garden. It was the lawn previously. I broke that soil with a pickaxe.
Oh my God.
Even at my weight, I could not drive a shovel through it. Okay? I broke it with a pick to break up the soil. It's lots of physical labor. It's beyond me at this stage. Okay. We've talked about this already, but let's reinforce it. You never walk on your garden soil. Encourage clients to have gardens that are narrow and long. This is why. Here's the sand-silt clay. Notice the pore space. Notice the water and air penetrating it. Okay? If you walk on the soil, you compress it, you smoosh all those little particles together, the water and air can't get through it. Now, it looks okay from the top. People say, oh, my garden's fine, you know? Look at this picture. It's a schematic here, but notice compacted soil, well aerated soil, well structured soil. Look at the top of the picture though. Just look at the top. You might say, I can't figure out what's wrong with my plants here. They've got some disease or need to add more fertilizer or chemicals to it. What's the problem? It's the soil being compacted. It's an invisible problem, okay? Which is why the no-till methods don't work well here, okay? You've got to break up the soil. You've got to get the organic matter into the soil. Okay, look at the top of these 2 pictures. And the internet keeps trying to break in on me for some reason. I don't want the internet, thank you very much. Okay, look at the top of those 2, that picture, look at the top of those 2 plants, right? The grasses. Now look at the real thing. Okay. Again, notice strongly growing, not so strongly growing. This is the effect of mycorrhizae. Don't worry about spelling that, I put it on your handout, okay? You're welcome. Mycorrhizae is a fungus. This is the definition I got from Google. It's in all the soils. It basically needs water and plant roots to come alive. It just activates it when it comes alive, right? What it does is it extracts the nutrients from the rock and feeds it up to the plant. The plant in exchange sends down the sunshine. Remember, plants don't eat rocks. Plants eat sunshine. They send that energy and food down. Look at this little teeny plant. This is not the root system of this plant. This is a fungal spore mat, okay? This is the mycorrhizae. The roots of the plant are right up there. But they live in symbiosis with one another, okay? Somebody asked, can you add mycorrhizae to your garden? Yes, but remember it only works in symbiosis, in relationship with roots. So it's no good just casting it out. Okay? It's also somewhat controversial. You can buy mycorrhizae in a jar. It's a white powder. They say sprinkle it in the hole, or what I do is I pat it on the roots when I plant something and then put it in. I swear by it, I've used it, I've had great luck. Science says, doesn't work so good, right? There are natural mycorrhizae in our native soil. They say it's better to just let the natural mycorrhizae come out. It's possible that the stuff we've been adding to our soil isn't effective at all. It could be, I've had great results in using it, but I have a lot of other good cultural practices too. Is it my good gardening practices, or is it the mycorrhizae I bought? I don't know. It's not harmful, but it is important in your soil. The science is still out on whether or not you need to add it. Did that answer the question? Whoever had the question?
I had the question,
Yeah.
but is it possible that whatever this mycorrhizae that we buy doesn't come from here and it could overgrow our natural? Like, is there some danger
Yeah,
to
that's a great question. What if the one you buy in a package comes from, a farm somewhere and competes with our natural one? Yeah, that's one of the issues. They say there's only so much material a fungus can eat, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, it's probably better in your landscape not to use it. Because again, we're refilling our landscape holes with the native soil, right? In the vegetable garden, we're highly amending it, so maybe you can get away with it. Science is still out on that. I've been looking and I haven't found a definitive answer. Okay, back to the what kind thing. Raised beds, they can be made out of metal like this, rock, wood, anything you like, stone. The point of this, the pros on it, are they're easier to reach. People can't bend these days. I can't kneel anymore. People who are in a wheelchair can work them, right? Good thing. People think they're more attractive than round beds. I don't know why. People like to build stuff, I guess. The books say it deters wildlife. It'll help you keep the critters out of your garden. My rabbits know how to hop.
I don't think so.
My raised beds have been devastated by rabbits. I've had to fence them to keep them away from that, all right? So I put a question mark by that. The bad side is it's more expensive. You have to buy the construction material, and you have to buy the soil. I was talking with people about this at the break, and where do you buy the soil from? Where do you get good soil? My solution was to buy some from different sources, and then add my own compost, and mix it, and watch the soil, and monitor it, and test it with the jar test. Okay? It takes a little more control. This is also my own personal opinion, so take it for what it's worth. I think it's more difficult to get that soil food web going in a raised bed. I gardened for years in the ground, had fabulous crops, hardly had any pest problems. I switched to raised beds, oh my, all kinds of insects and disease problems. Okay? I think of a rainforest, a jungle, all this plant and animal life. Then erect a 10-foot wall around it. You think the life is going to be more strong and vigorous inside the wall or outside the wall?
Outside.
Okay? In a raised bed, you've cut off the soil food web. You can't have worms just creep in. You can't have natural fungi in a relationship. What happens to that communication thing? I think it's trickier to garden in a raised bed, which is kind of unfortunate because much of the public likes this. But on the other hand, maybe the benefits outweigh that problem. Maybe you can really amend well and overcome it. All right, so I don't want to be too negative. I just think it's tricky. I've also talked with Rick about this. Rick Gibson. He agrees. He thinks raised beds are trickier. Okay, anyway, I don't want to spoil the waters for that. Then there's always containers, which is a fancy name for pots. Yes, you can grow root vegetables in them. You need to have 12 to 18 inches root room. You can grow winter vegetables and summer vegetables. We'll get more to that. It grows fine. You can garden in big containers. We recommend 18 inches or bigger, always for all containers. What about the water issues for the three types? Which one do you think uses the least water is what we're interested in? Ground, raised bed, or containers? Ground. Containers. Somebody says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll let you decide that. Because now I want you to take your index card, talk with your neighbors at your table again, decide what type, now that you know the pros and cons, decide which type is best for you, and what's the most important feature of that. Why did you make that decision? Go ahead.
spray it on? That would be hard to know. Container garden. It's got to be good. Because I water some every day. Right. Raised bed, I don't water every day.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come back again, please.
Do you?
Okay, ladies at the back table. What did you guys decide on? Containers. Why? What was the most important point about containers?
Well, I have some, so I'm going to.
You already have the containers? That's why you're doing it?
Well, there you have it.
Well, I guess just because they're smaller.
They're smaller? That's, easier to manage.
Yeah.
Anybody else pick containers for a different reason? Same reason?
I just picked it because I don't have a yard, I have patios.
That's actually a very good reason. We have a lot of winter visitors. We have people who are renting or not allowed to dig or not allowed to build things. If that's all you have, that's a perfectly way. That determines your choice, yeah.
It's also easier to move containers.
Easier to move the containers around, into sunnier, shady locations or warmer, colder locations through the season. That's an excellent reason to use containers. You guys picked raised beds, right?
Yes.
Why?
Raised beds. I want something aesthetically pleasing. The way that it looks is very important to me, and it's also easily accessible.
That's easily accessible. That's why I do it now. And
so many grass
attractiveness. That's perfectly fine. Anybody else picked raised beds?
Yeah, physical needs.
Physical
I
needs.
can't get on my knees anymore.
I can't kneel anymore either. My knees are shot. Yeah.
I think we decided that I have 100% control of the weeds in a raised bed. It's 4 by 8. And when I gardened in the Midwest, I mean, there were weeds.
Can everybody hear her? She's awfully quiet. She says she likes raised beds because of the weeds. She can control weeds better. That's something I didn't list, but that's perfectly good. Yeah, that's quite reasonable. Yes, here.
Yeah, I do. Also, mine is 4 feet wide by 14
Perfect.
feet.
You guys know what you're doing.
All right, mine's
14
4.
feet long, and I control the weeds, and it's easier for me to, and then I have it in the east side, and because I planted trees and I planted so many things, I put it in the east side, my garden, my vegetable, and it's good enough for me,
It fits your needs. That's a perfectly reasonable answer,
What about if you have a raised bed on top of a previously cultivated bed? Could you potentially have that soil web?
She's getting way complicated. She wants to put a raised bed on top of a previous cultivated bed, so all the good fungus and stuff will come up from the.
I think that's a great
works,
idea.
actually. That works very well. Did anybody pick in-ground beds? Yeah, good for you. Lone wolf.
I've had the same experience where the performance is better in ground, and I think it takes less water, and so that's important for me.
And you're younger.
Everybody hear that? He says he likes in ground because he thinks the soil is more actively alive, and then it uses less water. Anybody else argue the water issue? Yes.
Well, that's what I put. I said least costly and least water use.
For the in-ground?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that true?
The issue of water is open question. We just had a big debate about this. A reporter came in and interviewed me and a couple other gardeners, and it's unsolved. Nobody's done any real good science. Part of the problem is the soils are so different. In a container, you're using basically potting soil. In a raised bed, you're using artificially created soil. In the ground, you're using your natural soil organisms. It's not clear. Plus, each bed has different sun conditions. The weather's different every year. It's hard. What's the question as to which bed is better? Whatever works, whatever suits you. Okay, we're not in the business to tell people how to garden or what kind of garden they should have. We're in the business to help them have the best garden possible. So you need to know all about the different types, but people can do whatever works for them. All your answers are correct. Okay, one more question.
One quick thing here. We were talking about how raised bed versus in-ground, that the natural soil web doesn't work as well. Well, when you go to a pot, wouldn't that be even more so?
Correct. Yeah. Everybody hear that? She says, if you're going to a container, you almost have to use potting soil, so you can have less soil biology. That's why vegetables in pots are going to have to be fertilized probably with a soluble fertilizer or top dressed and things like that. Yeah, because there's just not enough room for that.
Do you add other organic stuff?
Other organic matter to it. Okay, one more question, then we got to go on.
What is the impact of the intensity of the sun when you have them in raised beds and don't the roots get warmer?
Good question. What's the impact of the sun intensity and the heat in a raised bed? You saw I had a picture of a metal bed.
Well,
People go, oh, does the metal get too hot? Well, yeah, the metal gets hot, but it's not bad for the plants. Okay. The reason for that is we recommend large raised beds. Okay. Container gardening in pots is a different issue. Those pots, you can't grow everything in it. Like you can't grow heavy feeders like corn in them, right? And you can move them in and out of the sun. Although vegetables do need full sun. How many hours? 6. Okay, good. Yeah. You can play with that. A container should be large, 4 feet wide. I hear everybody describing that because you do need room for water transport and all this communication of the soil food web, right? A metal bed is perfectly fine. The reason for that, and metal's easy, cheap to build of. We have some built out of watering troughs out there, stock tanks, right? The reason for that is the same reason you can bake a cake. You all baked a cake, right? You put it in a 400-degree oven. How do you test whether the cake is done? You reach in and you touch the top of it and you see if it poofs back up. For anybody who hasn't baked, you've done that, right? Okay. Now think about that for a minute. The air inside the oven is 400 degrees. When you open the oven and you stick your arm in, your arm doesn't burst into flame. You can reach in and you can touch the cake and your finger doesn't burn. What would happen if you grabbed the metal pan? It would instantly burn. It has to do with the conductivity properties of heat, okay? Air, we can be in 110, 115 degree air and it doesn't burn the plants. The metal of a raised bed may indeed get hot, depends on how much sun it gets, but the soil inside is like the cake batter, okay? The heat doesn't get in through that. So the roots, which are well watered, because the soil is kept really moist and not allowed to dry, is like the cake batter. It doesn't get hot, okay?
is there an ideal depth for a raised bed?
Is there an ideal depth for the raised bed? The minimum has to be 12 to 18 inches, right? I think I talked about that already, didn't I? Okay. That's a problem that sometimes we build raised beds that are deeper just to make them more accessible, right? By the way, you have to fill the entire bed with the same soil. You can't put gravel or packing peanuts or tin cans or anything else in the bottom of it, right?
Or sand.
Yeah, sand has to be filled. Even if your plant roots are only going to go down this deep, I know that's counterintuitive. It doesn't seem to make common sense. That's the rule. I'm giving a talk this Saturday about how to take care of your plants, and I'm going to hit that perched water table drainage thing heavy. If you want to do that, come to the seminar on Saturday. I don't have time for it today, sorry. Afterwards, maybe next week. Okay, your 10 steps is full of stuff like this, traditional stuff. How to select a good location. Here's some that I think are most important. We already talked about the fact plants need full sun. The soil must be evenly moist, right? It's easier to shade, to take away sun than it is to add sun. You can't add sun. The wildlife fencing thing, like I said, I have javelinas. I watched a javelina walk through my raised bed, and he was going for something tasty. I don't know, walked over and crushed all the corn seedlings. Fencing, you may have to do. That's the ultimate protection against wildlife. We do a whole lecture on just wildlife also, if you're interested. One of the main things is put it where you see it. Don't put it out in the back corner of your yard. Put it where it's attractive, where it's fun, where it's beautiful. Enjoy it. Okay, enough of that traditional stuff. Let's get back to my style of doing it. The seasonal timing and variety selection, by far the most complicated thing, but once you get it, it's easy. All right? It's complicated. Okay? We already talked about how the light conditions change throughout the year. Some crops need long days, some crops don't mind short days, right? Soil temperature is most important when you consider seed germination, but also the soil, the roots of plants live in the soil. So invest in a little thermometer. A little meat thermometer works fine, a digital meat thermometer works fine. And then air temperatures. As I talked about earlier, we usually plant by the calendar. Okay? It's really complicated. The good news is there's a general rule. Here's the general rule. If you eat the leaf or the root or the stem of the plant, it's a cold weather crop. If you eat the fruit of it, that is something that comes from a flower, it's a summer crop. Again, If you eat the leaf or the root, you grow it in the cool season. If you eat what comes from a flower, the fruit, you grow it in the summer. Now, please notice that all of these things, remember this slide from earlier? All of these things are fruits, even though we wouldn't normally call a zucchini or an okra a fruit because it forms from the flower, right? These are all summer vegetables. The leafy greens are the winter vegetables. That's it. That's the rule. You can go home now. Oh, wait, no, there's more. Okay. I want you to notice that this makes sense once you get it. Because you think about what happens, you know, a watermelon vine. Okay, vine's got to sprout and grow, and it grows a big vine. It makes a flower, it makes a fruit, and then it grows this great giant melon, then it's got to sit on the vine for a while and get sugary and sweet. That takes a lot of solar energy, right? Sun, summer, long days. These little lettucey, spinachy things, just pick a leaf and eat as soon as it grows, okay? They could get by with the cooler temperatures. Also, biologically speaking, the hot temperatures force their metabolism into overdrive, and they get bitter, and they sprout. In the old country, in Kansas and Mississippi or wherever you garden, right? You planted your vegetable garden in May, and you harvested it in September, right? You can get on the internet and say, oh, it's May, time to plant your lettuce. Okay, don't follow that. In that vein, I want you to take a look at your 10 steps now. Again, the most important handout we have. Everybody flip to page 7 and 8, please. Every talk I give about vegetable, I teach the audience how to read this thing. Notice down the left-hand column alphabetically are the names of the vegetables. It starts with asparagus, it continues on page 8. The bottom of page 8 starts over again. Don't get confused. This handout is designed to work in all of Arizona, right, counting cooperative extension. We in Tucson are at about 24,000 feet, so we read column 3. If you're in Yuma or in Flagstaff, 2,400, what did I say, 24,000? Yeah, that would be 2,400, yeah. That would be like Everest. No, 2,400, thank you. We're at 2,400. If anybody here from Green Valley, you're a little bit higher. Anybody here from the foothills in Oro Valley, you're a little bit higher. So find the column that matches your altitude. Now, as far as I'm concerned here in Tucson, you can just X off column 1 and 2. You're never going to use them. The list starts over again on page 8 with asparagus. Those are for different altitudes. Cross those off. You're never going to use them. They're just confusing. Ooh, somebody's got the smart idea of folding the page. That's a genius. I'm stealing that. That's genius. I love that. She's folding it over. And that's it. That's the secret. So we look at this. Eggplant. Eggplant, you eat the fruit of an eggplant, right? So it must be a summer crop, right? Look over to column 3. It should be planted from April to May. You can't plant it any further after May because you need time for the plant to grow. Lettuce. Let's find lettuce. Head lettuce, leaf lettuce, right? Lettuce, you eat the leaf, so it must be a cool season crop. Look over, September, August, you should be planting your lettuce now, so it'll be ready to eat for the winter. That's it.
No, wait. Is this talking about seed or small?
That's a great question. Can I defer that for a minute? Just talk about seed or transplants. Both. Sometimes it says, like for pepper it says, I'm going to give you some more information which will help you with that problem. I promise. Okay. You can use this information for in two ways. You can read down and find the vegetable you like and say, okay, I want to grow corn, sweet corn. It should be a summer crop, but you start it nice and early in March. So you can find your favorite vegetable, read over to the date, and figure out where to plant it. You should know by the general rule, right? Broccoli, you eat the stem, you plant it in the fall for a winter season. You can also use the chart in reverse. You can just read down and go, okay, right now is October, so September to January, I'm in that time zone, so I can plant this vegetable, collard greens. Does it make sense? So if you want to know what can I plant this week, you read the column. If you want to know when can I plant carrots, you read the alphabet. That makes sense? Bingo! This is the secret to successful vegetable gardening. Once I got this chart from George Brookbank, I became a vegetable gardener. Seriously. All right? Now, go back to your card you marked at the beginning. You listed some vegetables. Mark them with a W or a C as to whether or not you think it's a warm or a cool season crop. You should have 3. Okay, go ahead and discuss it with your neighbor. Check your neighbor, see if y'all agree.
I have to go pick up Helen, and it's early release. Can you, so I'm going to leave before the end, can you turn this off when you stop?
I can handle it.
Yeah, awesome.
I can turn it off now. Okay, anybody find one they're not sure of? Anybody find one they couldn't figure out? Yeah. Sweet potato. Is it not on the list?
It is cool.
Okay, can we all come back together, please? Does it say sweet potatoes? So you figured it out, right? Sweet potatoes should be planted in the spring, right? Because it likes short days, and you harvest it when the days get short. Anybody else find one they didn't know about? No. Anybody else have a question? Yes. Artichokes. What's the trick with artichokes? Yeah, they're perennials. They grow forever. Artichokes are funny here in that they kind of fail in the heat. They don't die, but you can kind of think of them as summer deciduous. They're not really deciduous, of course, but they grow year-round once you plant them. They blossom and they fruit. They make their little artichoke head in the springtime and the hot summer months, April, May. Harvest quickly before they go to seed, right? And then the plant often dies back in the summer. Don't give up on it. I leave all the dead leaves on it, and then once it cools down, like now, I would trim it and let it recome back. Okay? Artichokes are not on the list because they're perennials. Any others? Now, this list is not the be-all and end-all of lists. I have some others. We'll go into more detail. Give me a second, please. Okay. Why is this timing so critical? This is the thing, you guys, that people get this and they can garden here. All right? Why do we have this problem here? Most of our gardening heritage comes from Europe, especially England. Again, look at the latitude. Where's Tucson? It's not even on this chart, okay? You know? Our sun conditions are so radically different than where the traditional vegetables are grown. That's why you need to use only charts which are adapted for this region. What you read on the internet is not always true, all right? Got it? This is key, you get this. You'll see a lot of things like this. I got some problems here. Look at this beautiful harvest picture. I want a basket of harvest like this. Never gonna happen in Tucson. What's wrong with it?
Good to know.
Root vegetable, next to a fruit, next to a leafy green, next to another fruit. You never get these harvested together in Tucson. That also puts a damper in some of the companion planting stuff. Some of the things they say the companion plant don't grow in the same season. Question?
Yeah, on this chart, like cucumber, does it have 2 planting seasons?
Correct. Okay. Sometimes there's more than one planting season. Yeah. This also I stole from Mel Bartholomew's Square Foot Gardening. How many people have heard of Square Foot Gardening? Nice book. It's a lot of fun. He kind of has a cult following. He's gone now, unfortunately. It's not new with him, by the way. It's called French Intensive Gardening. Ooh. He just popularized it for America, but that's all right. He has this thing where you divide your garden up into little feet squares, and you plant each feet with so many, 1 corner, 1 pepper plant, and 16 carrots per square. It's a lot of fun, but again, look at this plant. Spinach. You eat the leaves. When do you grow that? Winter. Tomatoes. You eat the fruit. When do you grow that? Summer. You can never use his planting charts. Okay? Be careful. Big red X on these. Okay? Another way of reinforcing, it's different here. Isn't that what I said in my first slide? It's different here. That's the main thing, right? Don't follow the books. The books are interesting to read about the varieties, but follow the planting charts here. Okay? We do have the 5 seasons, which will be on your test, I'm sure. Use charts. Now, 10 steps is great, but it's not the only planting guide. This one is produced by the Tucson Organic Gardener's Guide. You don't have to write the URL down, it's on your handout. And oh look, I just happen to have a few of them here. Now this is not an official handout. You are not responsible for this information on your tests, so don't get mad at me. You don't have to take one of these if you want, but if you'd like a copy, you may, all right?
Thank you.
I like this. Let's zoom in on it a little bit here. Oh wait, by the way, notice how many seasons do we have?
1, 2.
How many does this say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's open to some interpretation. Okay? For your exam, do whatever Judy wanted to tell you, okay? Let's zoom in on this. Right now we're in mid-October, right, or early October. You can plant Swiss chard, of course, because you eat the leaf of it. Wait a minute, can you plant it from seed or a transplant? Somebody asked that, the answer is both. Okay? Wow. Same thing with broccoli. Broccoli, seed and transplant. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, it's an excellent cultivation technique, cultural technique called succession planting. You don't want 10 broccolis ready to go on October 12th, okay? You want a broccoli this week and a broccoli next week and a broccoli the week after that, okay? So plant some seeds now, put out some transplants. That's allowed at the same time. The transplants are probably 4 to 6 weeks ahead, okay? Also, don't plant your garden in 1 week. This is the weekend I'm going to do my veggie garden, right? No, no, no. Okay, plant some of it this weekend, some of it next weekend, some of it a month from now, so we have a continual harvest. All right. Succession planting also helps that if you have one squirrel that comes into your garden that breaks through the fence, you lose everything. If you have just planted half your garden, you only lose half your garden. Okay. It also helps confuse the insects. You know, a lot of caterpillars, or all caterpillars, are some moth that flies through, right? If the squash vine borer moth flies through and hits every zucchini plant, you lose your entire harvest. But if you have some zucchini plants and some that are coming up from seeds, you'll still get zucchini. Okay? It's a good cultural practice. A lot of people claim it's the best thing you can do. Okay? I love the Tucson Organic Gardener's Guide. It's easy to read. It has those season things. It doesn't have all the information you have. There's another great guide that comes from the Community Gardens of Tucson. They garden in ground plots, by the way. If you don't have room to garden at your home, contact these people. They have space available, right? Their chart is interesting. Again, the URL is on your handout, right? Because it goes by a calendar. Let me zoom in on it a little bit here, okay? It has a calendar. It breaks the months up into just first and last half of the month. It has S for seedling and T for transplant. Notice some of them you can do both. Some you do just one. Artichoke should be planted from transplant. Nobody grows artichoke from seed, right? Beets is a root crop. It has to be grown from seed. There's a lot of good information on this chart, okay? Also, something I haven't mentioned before is the germination soil temperature. If you're starting from seeds, you need to pay attention to the soil temperatures. In your textbook, in the veggie chapter, there are charts for the soil germination. This has them all in one handy alphabetical list. Again, you can go to the website and get this, or, oh look, I happen to have some here. Again, this is not on your test. It's not an official document. Everybody understand that? This is not an extension document, but I really wanted you guys to have it. It's 2 pages, so make sure you get both sides. And I didn't print it back to back because you want to hold it like this so you can see the whole calendar. April or January through December. So go ahead and I'm just going to pass this around in the folder and make sure you get both sides, left and right side. Okay. Not on your test, you're not responsible for it, but I want you to have it because it's very useful. Question? What?
Oh, she hasn't laid out
Artichoke
like
take an
that.
additional year, probably. You can grow artichokes from seed. It's not commonly done.
Thanks.
Okay, the soil temperature is important if you're going to use seeds. Let's take a look at it. Oh, I already said this. The soil temperatures are in your manual. So cross-check them is what I would do, right? Let's look at this again. Here's the key to this. Seeds, transplants. If it's blank, you don't plant it. Somebody was asking about when to plant sweet potatoes. There you go, in April. Turnip is a root vegetable. It's a cool season vegetable. So you stop planting it in April because May is too hot for it. Okay? Tomato is a vegetable or a fruit, right? So it grows in the summer, but you got to start them early. Talking about tomatoes.
Yeah. So when you have that chart up and it shows T for transplant, you know, various months.
This one or the previous one?
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
Okay, so like for example, tomato, you start in February transplant through April transplant, or end of April. You start, that's saying you can put a new transplant at the end of April? That wouldn't be too hot?
Correct. Some you can get away with. April will be the latest you plant a tomato. Okay? And that's why.
So those charts, that's the end period of
The end period, that's when you'll be putting them in soil.
Okay.
Okay?
I just want to read somewhere that tomatoes and peppers are perennials.
Are what?
Can be perennials.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's a great question. She says tomatoes and peppers are perennials. This is true. Okay? Both the tomato and the pepper are a South American or Central American plant. They grow in jungles or a tropical plant. They're perennials there. Remember how I said the gardening culture comes from Europe? In Europe, they don't live through those cold European winters. They do grow here year round. If you want to keep, if you have a pepper plant you particularly like, or a tomato plant you particularly like, you can keep it growing year round. It won't fruit for you year round, but you can keep it growing. Okay? We're just about to talk of that. As a matter of fact, I have a whole section on just tomatoes. I have this picture in here just because I love it. That's my garden, little cherry tomato. Okay. I'm going to go slowly here, I hope, because this usually causes a lot of confusion. Tomatoes, not only is vegetable gardening super popular in the public, tomatoes are the #1 favorite vegetable worldwide, or countrywide anyway. They do grow here. People say, can't grow vegetables, tomatoes here. You can, but there are some tricks to it. I have a whole little section on your handout about it. Don't forget, you're going to get a copy of this PowerPoint later so you can look at this closely. Okay. You must have good soil. They're pampered poodle plants. Okay. Select the right variety. I'll help you with that in a second. Plant at the right time. Basically, it's early. Have good watering practices, which of course is a function of having good soil. Okay. This is the key. This is a temperature chart. I got it from some online source, Weather.com. Okay. Here's the calendar, January through December. So the blue line is the nighttime cold. The red line is the daytime high for all the months of the year. And naturally, it's coldest in the winter, hottest in June, July, breaks in August and September. Makes perfect sense, right? Okay. People look at this and they go, wait a minute, why isn't the high up over 100? It's because it's an average over many years. It's not always so. Okay, here's the trick. Well, first let's talk about this. You want to do small varieties of tomatoes, not whoppers, beef steaks, etc. Okay? Stay away from those giant varieties. Cherry tomatoes are wonderful. If you're a beginner gardener, if you're talking to a client who wants to start, steer them toward cherries. And you go cherries, boring, wrong, okay? They come in all different colors, all different shapes, sweet, tart, wonderful, less acidic ones, okay? Or go for varieties like Heat Wave, Early Girl. Notice the names, okay? Heat Wave, it takes a little more heat. Early Girl, it matures quickly. That'll become apparent in just a second. Also, believe it or not, Arctic ones do well, like the Siberian tomatoes. Ones that they grow in Alaska and Russia do very well because they have a short growing season, not because of the heat. Okay, back to our temperature chart. Okay, here's the trick. Let's talk about how a tomato works. The plant grows, then it sets flowers, right? It makes flowers, blooms. Then the flowers set fruit. That means they get pollinated and they set fruit. Then the fruit grows in size. Then the fruit ripens and gets sweet. Now we pluck it off and eat it, right? Now, those processes are all different. The tomato is a perennial plant which will grow year-round. However, it only sets fruit. That means the flowers pollinate when the nighttime temperature is in between 55 and 70. If it's too cold, your plant will grow, okay? It may even bloom, but the flowers won't make tomatoes. It won't pollinate. Or if it gets too hot. We have all the time people call us in June and say, hey, my tomato plant was doing real well, and I ate all those tomatoes, and now it's blooming, but I don't get any tomatoes on it. It's June, right? And you go, that's right. That's correct, because the nights never get below 70. We don't set the fruit. Okay? The fruit setting is dependent on the low temperature. Got that?
70 to what?
55 to 70 is what the books say.
Okay.
Okay, I've drawn a little blue line here. So here about in April is when it gets over 55, and before June is when it's below 70. When did the planting charts say to start your tomatoes? Back in here? So they're blooming in this time period. This is why we start tomatoes in February. We give tomato lectures to the public in January to tell them, get ready, get them planted so they'll bloom and pollinate. This is the pollination window. Make sense? Okay, that was easy. However, there's another trick. Okay? Once the tomato plant grows, flowers, the flower sets a fruit. The fruit won't ripen if it's too hot during the day. That's why people say, my tomato plant was doing so well earlier, it's all set all this green fruit, but they rot, they never get ripe, or the birds get it when they fall off. And we go, yes, that's right, because it's July, it's too hot. Okay? So we have one condition, we need to pay attention to the blue line, the nighttime cool. One condition we have to pay attention to the red line. It's different functions of the plant, but hey, it's tomatoes, you know? Okay, let's look at this again. I'm going to cut the line here. The night at the blue line, the cold has to be over 55. But the red, the hot, has to be below 90. Some sources say 100. I can get away with 100 usually. Some sources say 90. Okay, so we have to be above the blue line and below the red line at the same time. Which means basically tomatoes will only ripen in Tucson here and here. Tomatoes are tricky here. Why do we want early girl that ripens quickly? Plant, grow, ripen, eat. The plant will continue to grow through the summer, keep it alive, and guess what? In September when it cools down, you'll get more harvest from it. Cherries grow quickly. That's why they do well. Now, this is the books. You know, this is what the reality says, or this is what the, the theory says. In reality, the reality is a little bit better. You stand a chance of getting ripe tomato in this window if you have a good variety, like heat wave, early girl, and so forth. So if people are trying to grow their favorite Whopper tomato back from Pennsylvania, tell them, why don't you try some early girl? Try some Siberian. Try some of the heirloom varieties. Do better than these hybrids also. Okay? Tomatoes do grow here, but they have these sensitive temperature problems. You think about it, in the tropics where they're native, the nights never got cold, below 55, and they didn't get our 110-degree heats there because of all the humidity, right? That's why they're tropical plants. We've ripped them up and placed them somewhere else where they're unnatural, so we have to treat them with a little tender love. And again, we have limits on how we can grow tomatoes, but we can do it. Okay? I spent about 10 minutes just on that one vegetable because, like I said, you're going to get tons of questions, and it just breaks people's heart. They say, I gave up gardening here because I can't get any tomatoes. You can't. You can't. Okay? All right. Let's talk about some of the winter crops. These are winter crops because you eat the roots, right? They need good soil, probably not for beginners. They do grow in containers, 18 inches of root room. Your carrot's not going to grow 18 inches. Right, but it needs that, again, soil biology stuff going on and the feeder roots and all that stuff. Be careful of the maturation dates. A radish will be ready in 3 weeks. Plant a radish now, you can eat it before the class ends. Celery, you won't eat it in May. Right? Not today's class. But anyway, the big thing about root crops is they must be set out by seeds. Don't transplant your radishes. Okay? Again, talk about you can have baby specimens in just a few days. Leeks, 120 days. Let's see, 30 days in a month. That's 4 months. 4 months of no watering problems, no javelinas in your yard, right? No little kids pulling them up. Okay, that's the difficult one. So judge based on your experience as a gardener and how good your soil is whether or not you want to try these types of plants. If people are starting a new garden, encourage them to try the things they can have success with. Okay, not leeks probably. The root crops can be a lot of fun. I have some slides on that just to encourage people. In case you're not familiar, this is kohlrabi. This is a rutabaga, and this is a turnip. They're all lots of fun to grow. A lot of these are not super tasty. They're kind of starchy or stewy. Unless you come from a culture that loves them. Anybody love these? I see some heads nodding going, oh yeah, I love them. Hey, Try them if you're not. I want everybody who's going to make a vegetable garden, you must have parsnips, okay? Parsnips are so easy. They're just like carrots. They grow like carrots. They're much sweeter than carrots. They're fun to eat raw. You can also cook them. You can boil and mash them, which is a great substitute for mashed potatoes. If people are trying to stay away from starch, they can be used like potatoes. The first year I grew parsnips, I got a really good harvest. I was so proud of it. I pulled a big handful and I held them like this, and I had my husband take a picture of, not me, you know, just my hands and the parsnips in front of the garden, right? Beautiful, wonderful parsnips, you can imagine here. We used it for our Christmas card that year. That's how beautiful they were. They were just gorgeous. You must try parsnips, okay? Anyway. Plant seeds. Believe it or not, I can't believe I have to teach this to Master Gardener. Be aware that a bean seed is this big. A corn seed is this big. Anybody know what lettuce seeds are like? Like dust, right? Like dust, okay? The correct diameter for all seeds is twice the diameter of the plant. So corn seeds you can poke down. Little seeds like radishes and carrots and all the herbs, I just sow directly on the surface. I have seen people, I have seen master gardeners do like this, poke into the soil this deep and drop a lettuce seed at the bottom of the hole. That lettuce seed is dead. There's no way that lettuce seed has enough energy to reach the surface, okay? So shallowly is fine. Cover lightly with the soil. Some people like to spread sand in the holes, or if you're planting in a row, you can spread sand along the holes because the sand will hold the water well, right? Right in the little ditch, and it's easy for the seeds to break through, and you can see where you've planted, right? Remember that they must be kept moist. Use your planting charts with the soil temperatures. Hill planting is popular for things like squash, potato. It's mostly squash and pumpkins, I should say. It's mostly used in areas where the soil doesn't drain or where the soil is too moist. You don't really need to use it here. The row planting is a traditional way to plant it. I want to encourage you to get away from that, because if your garden is only 4 feet wide and you're supposed to have a foot space between rows, if you only have room for 2 or 3 rows, right? Also, row planting comes from commercial agriculture. That's the way they do it, because they flood with their canals, they flood irrigate. We don't flood irrigate. And they run their tractors up and down the road. We don't do that. So please drop row planting. Broadcast planting. The rule for corn is you're supposed to plant them 12 inches apart on 2-foot rows. Well, in a raised bed, you're not going to have room for 3 corn plants. But you need to have 20 corn plants. I plant corn on 10-inch centers. That's my wingspan. I have an octave and 2 keys here, all right, on the piano. And I go like this, and I make a checkerboard pattern of holes in my garden, and I plant corn 10 inches on squares. I get 20 corn in an area this big. Corn wind pollinates. Now remember, I have really rich soil, so I get away from that. Right? Remember, commercial agriculture, they run their tractors and they're digging up the soil and they're eroding it. The rules for agriculture don't apply to home gardeners. That's a big mistake. Also, broadcast planting. I never ever take my seeds outside. That's one of my little things. I decide what I'm going to plant inside. I play with the seed packets and I put the seeds in Tupperwares or bowls and I take outside. If I'm going to plant greens like lettuce or something, I put them all in one little cup and I go outside and I've already prepared the bed and I go, I just throw them out there. And then I take my cultivator, maybe scratch over the surface. Remember, they don't have to be buried. And then I get a beautiful tight bed like this, full of lettuce greens. Every inch of that garden is used. That's the way we need to do it at home. Okay, let's take a minute now and look at your choices again and figure out whether they need to be direct seeded or whether they can be done from transplants or both.
Tomato would be transplant or seed. Asparagus is transplant.
You know where?
Yeah?
I never Julie and I absolutely have to look at it.
We use okay.
She has an appointment.
I go research.
Fine. Fine.
So fast.
Okay, get with your neighbors. Make sure you got it. Everybody in agreement? Any questions? Veggies, transplant, warm season, cool season. You got this, right? Chard, kale, ginger. How many of you go? Yes. Everybody got it? Watermelon transplant. Okay, can we come back together? You guys, we're done with the big stuff. If you got the sun, soil, and the watering right, and you understand the timing things, you can follow the charts. Now I'm going to give you some finesse stuff, right? Some cooler stuff. I heard somebody talk about watermelon. Watermelon is probably best from transplants because it takes a long time. Same thing with tomatoes. What we usually do is we order our tomato seeds, start them in January, so we have 8 weeks old seedlings to put out on March 17th when we're past the danger of frost. These are the traditional dates. Last year we didn't get a frost at all, so use your judgment. Last year we also had like 80, 90-degree days in February, so you know, the world is changing. I bet that date's on the test, but do whatever Judy and Wendy tell you to do. This first frost also, I plant a second crop of corn in August, and I serve my family fresh corn on Thanksgiving usually, although frost will kill it. So if we get an early frost, it's really good for it. And then traditionally you plant again in June, right? In general, look for things that mature quickly. Read those seed catalog or the seed packet descriptions carefully. Look for things with short maturation dates. Tomatoes, we want 60, 70 days, not the 90 days or 100 days, all right? In general. Okay, just some extra cultural hints here. I don't know where this came from. Oh yeah, this is the way I like this. The Department of Agriculture says it this way. Must be adapted to the site with the appropriate amounts of nutrients, water, and sunshine. We have a saying for that: right plant, right place. Okay? And right time. In the right time is the vegetable thing. Okay? This is a concept I love to teach the public. Let's say you wanted lettuce, which is grown when? Cool, right? You eat the leaves, so it's cool season, right? There are two basic kinds of lettuce. There's a leafy kind and a head kind. And not just the iceberg. I mean, you can have head kinds that are romaine, or not romaine, but other kind of head. Or you have a leafy kind, which is loose leaf, it's called. And, you know, 30 years ago, these were hard to find, everything with iceberg in the stores, but now you can find a lot of these. Notice that these two types, head and loose leaf, take up the same amount of space in your garden. They take the same amount of water. They take about the same time to mature. And when the head lettuce is ready to eat, you go in there and you pull it and you make one salad. And you're done. With the leafy type, you can pinch off just select leaves and let it continue to growing. You can eat, you get one salad off of this, you get salad for 3 months off of this one, right? Think loose leaf for all of these green crops, right? Here's how it's shown. We call this technique cut and come again. You usually take the outer leaves. You can even do this with types of like romaine lettuce. Now this poor baby probably wouldn't sell in a grocery store. It looks a little pitiful. But what's happening is people have been picking off the outer leaves. You notice it's still growing? It's still good. How much does romaine lettuce cost in the store? Okay. And was it grown by your own hand with fresh organic ingredients? Big difference. People say lettuce. I'm not growing lettuce. Lettuce is so boring. Wrong. Okay. Lettuce comes in all different colors, all different leaf shapes, even spotty. It does really wonderfully well in the garden. Talk about cost versus reward again. I want to introduce you to beets. Have everybody had beets fresh out of the garden? Again, it used to be rare. If the only thing you've had is those slimy red things that come in cans, you're not eating beets, okay? Beets are really sweet with a complex flavor. You can also eat the leaves. Again, cut and come again. Let them continue growing. Don't take all the leaves because you need to have the beet root grow up big, right? Beets are like a multifaceted thing. You can stir fry, you know, you can wilt the leaves, eat them. You can eat the root hot. You can also chill it after you cook it and use it in salads. Wonderful, wonderful product. One thing I should warn you about, to be fair, when you're handling beets, be careful because they stain everything. They stain your hand, they'll stain your counter, your clothes, right? And after you eat them, they also stay in your digestive tract. So don't be afraid a day later, it's just the beets, okay? I really panicked my husband the first time we ate beets. All right, so anyway. More about timing. We've already talked about direct seeding, succession, companion planting. Oh, wait, okay. Seasonal rotation. That happens automatically here because we have the cool season and warm season. Crop rotation is very difficult for home gardeners because, you know, farmers will let one whole field go fallow for a year or a season. Home gardeners generally just have one bed and they use it all the time. If people are having diseases like nematodes or other problems, we'll talk about more about that next week, encourage them to at least rotate within their bed. Like, don't always put the tomatoes in that spot. Put the tomatoes here, here. Put your tomatoes in a basket for 1 year, okay? Don't grow that this year. Grow corn this year. Grow winter wheat this year, something. Encourage people to switch it up a little bit. It's about the only way the homeowners can do crop rotation, okay? Also helps keep your soil healthy. Now, companion planting. This is a very trendy thing, right? I don't like to use the word companion planting because there's no scientific basis for it. We're supposed to promote research-based practices, right? Companion planting is mostly like folk myth, right? Carrots love onions or whatever the heck it is, okay? What we call it is polyculture or intercropping, mixing it up. That is a good practice. Let me show you some examples. The humble radish. It's a root crop, so it's grown when? Summer or winter? Winter. Good, okay. Again, it's something people think is boring. Remind you, it comes in all kinds of different colors, shapes, sizes. It even comes in black. And this one is called the watermelon radish. It tastes like a regular radish. It's beautiful in salads. You want to show off? Put this in some salads? Okay. So radishes are fabulous, easy to grow, good for beginners. What's this plant? Oh, shh. Somebody get away. Ever seen this? No. It's a radish. Those are radish plants, which have been radish plants, which have been left in the ground and allowed to grow seed.
Free seeds.
If you let, free seeds, exactly. If you let a radish plant bolt, which means flower, grow seed, it turns into a wonderful little purple shrub. It's kind of sage-like, like a salvia. It grows about knee-high. One little radish plant will make a decent little bush like this. Why in the world would the bottom's no good to eat anymore, of course. You can also do this out of season. The radishes are only good to eat in the winter, right? But you can plant them in the summer and they'll bolt like this. They make a beautiful plant. The flower's quite we grow it for a companion plant. The flower's quite beautiful. It's also edible. So even though the root is no longer good to eat, you can pluck off these little purple flowers and put them in your salads. Very fun. They have a spicy radish taste. If you leave the radishes on long enough, they go to seed. You get free seeds for the next season from it, okay? We like them as companion plants because the beneficial insects, like ladybugs, love to roost in this. Let some radishes bolt in your garden, even in the summer, around your tomato or pepper plants, because it'll bring the ladybugs and the lacewings into your yard. Okay? Also, once it's gone to seed, you can save the seeds, you can sprout the seeds. So even though you get a humble radish you can eat the roots of, then you get a beautiful flower in your yard. You can eat the flowers, you can eat the seeds, or you can sprout them and get that superfood energy burst that sprouts have year-round. All right, companion planting. Some more good companion plants. Everybody knows about alyssum. Again, it attracts the pollinators, attracts the beneficials. Marigolds have a very good reputation for being planted in your vegetable garden. They supposedly repel nematodes, the bad nematodes. Only certain varieties of marigolds do that. Okay? Marigolds are not quite as beneficial as people think, but they're beautiful in your garden, and they're hardy, they're fun to have, right? I want to introduce you to some other ideas, like how about basil? That's a basil flower. Basil is actually a warm season vegetable. It dies with the frost. It's very frost tender. But I want you to have basil in your yard. First of all, you get pesto and all the good Italian food. Let some of them flower. Last year we had this class, and when we gave them the garden tour the first day, people were saying, some people in the class were going, bad master gardeners, you let your basil flower, you know? Supposedly, yes, the leaves are better. The oil is more vibrant before it flowers. But if you let them go to flower, guess what? They're highly attracted to bees, which will come in and pollinate your other plants, all right? And not only that, the flowers can be beautiful on some varieties. So you get basil, which you can eat. You get the beauty of the flowers. You bring in pollinators. If you let the seeds go long enough, the flowers go long enough, they turn into seed, which is much beloved by golden finches. Right. So you bring in the golden finches, which, guess what? Then eat pest insects. So from one basil, you get pesto, beauty, bees, birds, and an insect eater.
It'll smell amazing while you're watering.
What?
It'll smell great while you're watering.
Yeah, and they smell great. Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay. This is what we mean by companion planting. It's not necessarily that one thing likes the other or helps the other. It's just, it makes for a balanced ecosystem. It makes for a better garden, all of that. It solves problems. Okay? Here's another thing about companion planting. Another trick to it. Remember I talked about how plants communicate? I'm not making that stuff up. There's real science. I grabbed this out of an article. This plant has been infected by an insect. This hasn't. Guess what? They're talking via the fungi and bacteria, exchanging chemical signals. This one starts producing VOC, which stands for volatile organic compounds. You don't have to know that. It has insect repelling chemicals that can produce. Plants talk to one another. So given that, you might consider planting things that will deliberately attract the pests. That's a trap plant. Now, wait a minute. For example, I should warn you, pest alert here, okay? This is a milkweed, which is a great plant around here, which are known to be loved by aphids. Why would you plant a milkweed if it's going to attract aphids? Would you rather have the aphids in your milkweed or on your broccoli? Okay? Plant things in your garden or near your garden that will attract the aphids, then you can treat the insect infestation before it gets to your broccoli. That makes sense to everybody? Okay? That's your red alert, your trap. You're trapping the bugs there. Right? Another one, the herbs, this is a dill plant. Dill is known to attract a lot of caterpillars. This one is not, but it's known to attract the hornworm moth. Would you rather, you say, I planted dill, I want my dill, right? I'm not going to let caterpillars eat it. Would you rather have a hornworm in your dill or on your tomatoes? Okay, trap plants is another kind of companion planting that's scientifically sound. Okay? I just love this sign. We're just using this because it's fun. Gives me a chance to breathe once in a while. Okay, a couple other finesse things. Onions. If you look at the bottom of the Tucson Organic Garden Guide, you notice onions are not on the calendar. They're a special case at the bottom. They're weird. People say, what time of year do I plant onion? It depends. There's different type of the onions. There's onions that make the bulb. There's slices like you put on your hamburger. There's the little thin green onions that we call scallions. And there's also ones that bunch like bulbs called multipliers. Okay? The rules are different for each one. Right? Bulbing onions you plant when the instructions tell you to. Okay? They are day length sensitive plants, I believe. Plant them in the cooler seasons, harvest in the summer, I think. Is that what the guide says? Okay. Bunching onion scallions. I don't know. Oh, that's a picture of them there. Okay. Those are grown from seed. So don't buy seeds at the store and expect to get slicer onion. Different kinds of things. People make these mistakes all the time, right? They have a long planting period. Also, remember, you don't want 10-foot a row of these all ripe on one day. You want a few you pull every day. So go out there and plant every time you check your irrigation system. I plant a few every time I water. Okay? Multiplier onions, so confusing. Okay? Basically, there's a ton of these. A lot of them are native. Plant whenever the instructions. If you get them from Native Seed Search, say, plant the instructions. This is a really cool one. This is called Egyptian walking onion, which I have tons of if anybody wants, okay? And it grows like a chive. You guys know chives, right? And the leaves are these big, long, tubular things, but they're bigger than chives, right? And you can cut these at any time you want, and they have you can eat the leaves, and they taste like onion. But they put out little bulbs at the tip. That's why it's called a walking onion, because it puts up this long straw-like tube, then it makes these little onions, and then it falls down, and they root, and it walks from place to place in your garden, right? And you can eat these like pearl onions, use them like pearl onions, or you give them away to your other master gardening friends, you know, and so we're going to have them. So here we have multipliers at the top of the plant, and here we have some at the base. Onions are kind of complicated. I think my instruction here says, check the directions.
Yeah.
Okay? There's no one good rule. If somebody comes to you and says, when can I plant onions, you have to say, what kind of onions do you want? You want traditional Native American onions? You want multiplier onions? Do you want slicers for your hamburgers? Okay, it's complicated. This is going on from the Tucson Organic Gardening Guide. Let's move on through the year, through later in this month. You notice they keep saying, plant greens, plant greens. Well, what the heck are these greens? We've talked about all these other things, right? I think a lot of home gardeners are not familiar with these. They're underused, so let's talk about them, okay? The oriental vegetables, these used to be super rare, like Bok Choy, oh, what's that? You know, I think people are more aware of them now, right? These all do really well here, okay? We do have that cost, effort versus reward thing going on because cabbage and Bok Choy are basically cut once. You can pull the leaves off Bok Choy, but most people don't. You can also get little miniature ones, which are way expensive in the stores, but super easy to grow. Just harvest them when they're small. Okay. This last one, Mizuna, one of my favorites. It's a cut and cut 'em again thing. It has a peppery taste. It looks beautiful in a container. Put it right in front of your front door. People think you're growing some beautiful ornamental. Then when they come over for dinner, you walk outside with a pair of scissors and cut some of it off. You know, it's really fun. Beautiful, easy, super easy. It's only a winter vegetable. In the summer, it bolts. I should have said, I don't think I have a slide in this presentation. A lot of these winter things actually taste better after it gets cold. Like kale, for example. A lot of people don't think kale tastes good until it's been kissed by frost. So they like cold. Okay. Mizuna is very versatile. You can use it fresh green. You can wilt it like spinach if you want also. All right. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I got through all this. Okay. Collard greens, it's another one of these greens. I don't have a mustard slide in here. Rats. Maybe I do in a minute. Collard greens, there's one master gardening program always yells at me if I don't mention collards, so I put it in every show. They can also be eaten like a wrap. If you're trying to get away from carbohydrates, use them for wraps. Right? They can also be wilted like spinach. When you do this wrap thing, here's the trick. Wilt them slightly in a hot pan of hot water, and then they get soft so you can make these beautiful wraps with them. Right? I think I have here, it's low in calories, super high in the phytonutrients, and vitamin A, and so forth. They're one of those superfoods. She's like a gourmet chef, one of our master gardeners. So. I also have a little segment here about make sure you read your seed packets carefully. There's one thing you have to really encourage people to. There's actually a lot of information on these. Let's zoom in. Okay, planting tips. Tender annual. This happens to be a pepper here, right? Tender annual. Well, that's a lie. It's really a perennial, but that's what they say, right? Direct sowing is not recommended. So they're selling you a packet of seeds and telling you not to sow it. They want you to start it in small pots in a greenhouse or inside. If you're starting small pots, remember, as soon as the baby leaves, the cotyledons come up. It doesn't need light. It needs warmth and water. And then once the cotyledons come up, once the first true leaves show, the cotyledons come from the seed. Once the first true leaves come, it needs sunshine. Put them outside before they get all whippy and spindly. Okay? So this means that you should transplant it early. Even more important for us here with our short seasons. Okay? Soil germination temperature. Pay close attention to this because the seed growers usually know what they're doing. All right? And again, they tell you 6 weeks before planting date. So look at 10 steps. If it says to plant out transplant, you want to sow the seeds 2 months before that. It takes a lot of planting, a lot of science. It's one reason why it's more complicated, why we have a whole lecture devoted to it, one reason why the public has a lot of questions. It's simple enough, but you gotta watch a lot of different things. Okay. I love this part. Again, on this pepper, you notice here it says plants are sturdy, reaching 24 to 30 inches tall. That's almost 3 feet, right? But look at what it says here. Plant height 12 to 18 inches on the same packet. Go by experience. Yeah. Sometimes it's not super helpful, but anyway. Okay, what else we have? Oh, I just have some more winter vegetables here if you're not familiar. Chard, beautiful cut and come again crop. It comes in all kinds of rainbow colors they've bred. This is kale. Kale is one of those superfoods. I don't think I have this in here. Darn it, unfortunately. I just need to put this in the winter crop. Well, you're all going to go to the library and talk about winter veggies, right? We'll talk more about it then, right? your winter garden, your winter veggie garden does not need covering. None of these winter crops die. The broccoli and the cauliflower and the lettuce and all the root crops and the chard, they don't die if they get frost or even snow on them. Okay? Don't cover it. They like to be cold. The cold temperatures help their flavor. Okay. Other ones, if you're not familiar with mustard greens, it's not the mustard in the yellow bottle. That's an herb, right? They grow that plant, get the seed, they crush the seed, make it into a paste. That's the mustard greens. You eat the green, kind of like Mizuna or the other green, to cut and come again. Celery. If you look at the package of celery, it takes 180 days. How long is 180 days? 6 months. 6 months with no problems in your garden. Good luck with that. It will theoretically grow here, but it's tough. All right. And there are many, many other greens. This is arugula. I didn't even mention cauliflower. There's a cress there. If you eat the leaf, you grow it in the winter. All right. Believe it or not, I finished early again. So I have time for some questions. And we'll do problems next week.
Should we put eggshells in our gardens?
She has a question about eggshells. What do you guys think? Eggshells in the garden, yay or nay?
Well, if you crush them.
Well, first of all, if you just put eggshells, they almost always have a slime or a film of the egg in it. It attracts vermin, cockroaches, flies. Okay. If you crush them up, clean them real good, they add calcium. Calcium carbonate is caliche, right? We already have calcium. Is that the answer you wanted?
Yes.
It's probably going to be on the test. So.
All right.
I didn't do peas. I didn't do peas. Yeah, I looked for a lot of cool weather crops because the class is in October. What about peas? Are peas a cool or a warm weather crop? Cool. What does it say on your charts?
Oh, I don't know. I just think it's, there's a purple gold piece.
Look it on your charts. Peas, one of the ones that's alphabetical. I had to end early because these guys want to read.
Peas.
When do you start peas?
According to your English proof, it would say summer, but.
Yeah. We have a lawyer in the audience here. Yeah. You're absolutely. Oh, sorry, camera. You're absolutely right. Ouch. According to the theory, peas are formed by the fruit from the flower, but they're planted when? You guys find it?
January.
Yeah, they're an exception to the rule. Fine, thank you. Okay. Dan, you want to tell us the difference between straw and hay? He had the answer to this question.
Well, caveat first is, I'm not a farmer. My degree was in animal science, but I've drawn enough farmers and ranchers.
Close enough, yeah.
Knowledgeable enough to be dangerous. Anyway, your question about the difference between straw and hay. When you harvest a grain such as barley or wheat, the head grows up on the top, and the farmers harvest the top, and what's left is the straw, and they cut that and bale it up. Hay is something like alfalfa, where the leaves are on the stem and they're cut off at the grounds, and that's usually used for livestock feed. And the hay has more nutrition. The straw has very little nutrition. That's what's usually put back into the soil, or it's used for bedding, and or in this case mulch. So that's my
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, I learned that.
Master gardener.
Thank you. Yeah. That's something you'll learn when you're out dealing with the public. A lot of people are afraid to do these talks because they go like, I don't know enough. What if somebody asks me a question I don't know? Happened to me every time I talk. Happened to me today. Fortunately, there was somebody in the audience who knew the answer, right? So it's perfectly normal. Nobody knows all this stuff. Any other questions? Or do I just get to let them go?
Really? You were fast.
I know, I can't believe it.
Well, you were talking pretty fast.
I tried to talk slow, sorry.
For sun and any other light.
Yeah, that's very.
I was wondering about. I'm thinking about here with the thing, winter vegetables, is the sun is important as light, in other words, we're doing things up against the
That's a great question. And he had one important word in that question, okay? Yeah, the winter vegetables are not going to get as much sunlight, the 8 to 10 hours, because the days are not that long, right? But again, you know, unlike the big fruiting vegetables, the leafy things can grow slower and they get away with that, right? But how can they get away with that when they don't get much light because of the fog? Fog. What is fog? It's humidity. It's water in the air. So they grow under a completely different environment where they don't have that evapotranspiration going. So they can get away with growing even slower, and it probably makes them even richer and better tasting, right? So it's a heat, humidity, light relationship, you know, that because they're under fog, yeah, they get less light, they're probably in a valley, but they have enormous amount of humidity. They don't need so much light. Yes.
Yeah, but is there a short answer to why not to put drops or broken pods or other things in the bottom of the
Yeah, the question is, what about this deal about you're not supposed to put broken pot or your gravel at the bottom of the pot? The reason is the common sense reason is, well, it helps my pot drain, right? Or I just want to fill the bottom of the pot. That's actually incorrect, right? If you look at the science, anytime you change texture from fine soil to good rich soil to gravel, water, it impedes the passage of water. You actually get a pooled puddle of water, right? If you look